Hi, welcome to the channel. Here we go again. The weather's supposed to be turning bad. I'm kind of getting tired of having these, once every 20-year ice or cold storms. And I think this is our fourth one in the last 5 years or 6 years. And here's what you can do to help protect the stuff from freezing. Now, a lot of things we're supposed to get down to 16 degrees now. Of course, it's still supposed to happen Tuesday night. So this is Friday, so we still got some time, so it could go even lower. Things like this, loquats in these small pots, they will freeze. So don't think that, hey, they can take down to 15 degrees. That's true. So these need to either be taken in the house or put in an unheated garage. If you're going to be putting them in for very long, I prefer an unheated garage, just because that way your temperatures don't go up and down, your pests don't go crazy, and all that. Now, things like this, where it's headed out like this, we're going to have to harvest this before it's over with, before the storm hits, because that's just too big. It will freeze and it'll destroy that head. However, if we get one like over here that has not put anything on yet, hopefully, or it's just starting to, it may survive. We're just going to have to wait and see. Sometimes they survive, sometimes they don't. Of course, this tea plant, green tea plant, is going to have to go in probably inside the house. It did have another bloom on it, so it's looking nice. But like I say, if we left it outside, it would not make it. Now, when you get trees like this is going to be tricky, because it takes up a lot of room. I don't know if I'm going to bring it in or not, but it's bloomed out. Now, some of these smaller buds, they may be okay. If anything else, I'm going to cut this top off of it and shove it up next to the house to give a south facing on the south side of the house, so that might protect some of them. But when they're bloomed out like that, we get below 26 degrees, it's going to kill them. So, but the tree itself would probably survive. It's not in the best of shape. This here is the Cherry of the Rio Grande. We're leaving it right where it's at. We're not going to do it. It has survived in the past. We'll see if it survives again. But these here in the smaller pots, these are my guava plants. They have to go inside. All your smaller citrus, like over here, that's in small pots, they need to be brought inside. They're not going to make it. Don't believe the hype that they can get down to single digits or whatever. When they're in those pots, they're not going to survive. So that's almost a given. These here, the loquat trees, you got some nice looking fruit on there. We're going to bring those inside. Also, they'll be in the garage like we did last week, the week before last, whenever that was, because it will freeze these back. It should survive the others. Same thing with the lychee tree. They have to be brought inside. And all the pineapples will probably be brought inside the last. So if we run out of room, they're the cheapest plants, so they're disposable. If it doesn't work, if something's going to die, I'd rather it be these, because I can go back and replant them fairly cheaply. The Myers lemon has in the past done pretty good. If we get room, I'll put it in, but if not, we'll put it on the south side of the house, and hopefully it will survive. Again, I can replace a Myers lemon, easier than I can some of the other fruit. The nectarine here, we're going to leave it outside because it only has a few blooms. It'll have more blooms later on, so I'm not worried about it. The Ujitsu, we'll have to pick all the fruit off of it. It's ripe now, and it'll be all right inside. But again, it's going to have to be brought into. If it's going to get in the mid 20s, I'd leave it outside, but it's just going to get too cold for it. And again, all these other, even though they're in bigger pots, they're going to be brought in also. And you really want to be careful with ones like this one that's throwing out some fleshy growth, because it doesn't have any cold tolerance, so it'll be brought inside also. Now we're going to kind of walk off and talk a little bit. These here are doing really nice on the onions. They may, even if it knocks them back and it kills the tops, the bottoms will come back up. It will set the plant overall down. I'm going to try to keep the video going just because, well, let's go ahead and I'll meet up with you in the garden. Okay, now this is the big tree, the biggest citrus tree that I have. It's the Jiu-Jitsu lemonade tree. It's got really good size to it, and you can kind of see what I've done in the past. This here is the graft. And what I want to do is build up the dirt up about to this level. And that way, if something happens, I'm going to put dirt bags or whatever, cover this trunk up. That way, if the worst things happen and this thing goes up and it kills everything from here on up, I'll still have some wood that it can bud from. And that way, I will protect the graft union. What you don't want to do is build it up above this graft and then leave the dirt there, because it will end up rooting out, and then you lose all your co-tolerance that you got from your graft. Not quite as, you won't see it. It's you know, this here is pretty obvious, but on some of the smaller ones you can get up too high pretty quickly. Now on my blackberry vines, I'm not worried about them. They should be able to survive just fine. We're not going to do anything to them. They might not even lose their leaves for the things all over with. So that's not a problem, but these are. And what we're going to do is we're going to take some, I'm going to trim these off, kind of oval, and go ahead and put some leaves and things of that nature, build this up, throw some the landscape fabric around it. And what I'm trying to do is trying to keep this inside good. You know, if it dies back, the tips die back, I may lose a year of fruit, but I'll still have the trees. And these trees now are no longer cheap. I mean, you're talking over $50 now to buy. And I can't get these hardly anymore because they're trifoliate, and around here they just don't sell them that much. Same thing with this one. Jishane is the name of this Satsuma, and we're going to do the same thing with it. We're going to kind of cover it up, throw some blankets over, you know, throw some landscape fabric over it, throw some leaves up over it. The leaves do a really good job of insulating it. We're also supposed to get a bunch of snow, which would help if that does happen. But in Texas, when they say we're going to have snow, you don't always believe them. And sometimes when they don't predict snow, we get 15 inches. This one's going to be the same thing. I'm going to go up here and trim this thing up. We're going to pile up some leaves, and that way I'm going to keep the center of that thing alive. I may, if some of these stick above because I'm going to have so much leaves and stuff I can pile up on these. So, and the same thing with this one here. It's going to be kind of sad because I'm going to have to trim all this back off, but still I want to keep this trunk alive, and that's what's important. Now I do have another big navel orange, the N33, which for some reason wasn't that sweet this year. Usually it's the sweetest fruit I have out here. Even when we picked some later after the taste test, it still wasn't. It got sweeter, but it wasn't that good. Again, on this one, we're going to do the same thing, but I got T-post here. I'm going to take some landscape fabric that I no longer use. I'll wrap the thing around it a couple of times, go over the top of it. Try to fill it up with as many leaves as I can. And then we're going to decide, I'm still probably going to wrap the top of it. The snow thing kind of gets me because I'm not sure how much the snow is going to cause a problem with that. The worst thing that's going to happen out of all this is going to be my brassicas. And you know, again, ones like these may be okay. They may be able to survive, but you know, here's nice purple. I mean, that is just so far away from being, I mean, it's going to get that big if I did it, but it's just not going to make it. So any of them I think that I can get something off of it, it's better to have a little than nothing. There's not very many that's even got a little on them. So it's just, they didn't produce as fast as I thought they would, so it got late in the year. And now we're in the worst time of the year for cold spells in Texas. I will say, since we're here, the carrots, I'm not that worried about, but I have lost carrots in the past. But if we get snow on top of them, they're going to be fine. Again, the onions, these onions will be here. Even if they die back to the ground, they'll still survive. Now these big loquat trees, They had so many pretty blooms on them. They're going to be toast. There's just nothing I can do. Because I will caution you, some people say, well, why don't you took a big tarp and put a tarp over it and then tied it down here next to the trunk? Basically, it'll do nothing at all. Give a little bit of wind protection, but a tree itself does not produce heat, and that's what you would need to do. Now, if you walked in there and took some those incandescent light bulbs, the Christmas lights, and wound around there and then covered it up, you'd be okay. You might work. Or if it was small enough, you could cover it with a frost cloth, frost fabric, and again, had some type of a heat source to it. And that's kind of the trick of it. You do have to have some type of heat source. And the ground itself is a good heat source, but just covering up the tops of a tree and tying it on the at the trunk does not help, especially for citrus that may kill the tree. Because let's pretend, because I don't have a tree that's really like that, but let's pretend this was a citrus tree, and we walked down here and we covered all the way up down to here, and then the grass was down here. Well, all this bark here is exposed, and if that bark splits, your tree's dead, no matter what you've done on top. So you do have to try, your main thing you're trying to do is protect that graft, because that's the most valuable part of the tree. That's an old fruit from last year. And you know, the loquats, they can handle it down to 15 degrees. That should not be a problem, especially if it's going to be wet, because the wetness will insulate it somewhat. And then over here, it's starting to rain. This is where I started my potatoes, the beds to them, and I see something has walked across them. I'm hoping that's a cat. And I will continue to make these beds a little taller, but I've got the first build up to them, and some of the stores have already got some potatoes in, so I do plan on buying some potatoes maybe this weekend if I get a chance, and then we'll just wait for them to start curing and starting to put out, well, not necessarily curing, but I guess chitting, because that way you let the start putting those buds start growing on them. And you know, because it's going to be potato planting time in a month. So yeah, it's cold this month, but next month it's time to plant. So don't sit there and think, hey, it's cold now, I'm not going to worry about getting any potatoes or doing anything or starting any transplants. I'm going to start transplants this weekend on my tomato transplants. It's going to warm up pretty quick in Texas, and when it does warm up, you may get a day or two that you have to cover them, but you can start a month earlier and get twice as much fruit. To me, I've had really good luck with that, but it is kind of depressing whenever you get to the point, especially on the brassicas and also loquats. They look so good, bloom so well, but that's Texas, and sometimes you get bit. It's always a gamble, and you know, it's not anything that you have done wrong. It's just we're marginal for a lot of this stuff. We're marginal for citrus, we're marginal for loquat. The brassicas, I just didn't get planted early enough, and but we're fixing to be in time to start planting. So don't be lulled into this fact of, well, we get all this cold weather, it's going to be too much for it's time to plant. You still got to go ahead and start your planting and do it right. But anyway, hopefully I've helped somewhat with the freeze coming. I'll keep you all informed of how everything goes, how it works. But go ahead and get your plants protected, get them covered all the way to the ground. If you can get some type of lights on them, that's pretty good. I just don't have electricity out there. And stay warm. See you next time.